and its relevance to man. Ecology is the scientific study of the relationships between organisms and their environment. It examines how living organisms interact with each other and their surroundings, including other organisms, physical factors like temperature and water availability, and chemical factors like nutrient cycles. Ecology plays a crucial role in understanding the natural world, and its relevance to humanity is significant in several ways. 1. Environmental conservation. Ecology helps us understand the intricate connections between species and ecosystems. This knowledge is essential for conserving biodiversity, protecting endangered species, and preserving fragile ecosystems. By understanding ecological processes, we can make informed decisions about resource management, land use planning, and habitat restoration, ensuring a sustainable future for both humans and the environment. 2. Ecosystem services. Ecosystems provide essential services that are vital for human well-being. These services include clean air and water, soil fertility, climate regulation, nutrient cycling, pollination, and natural pest control. Understanding ecological relationships helps us recognize the value of these services and promotes sustainable practices to maintain and enhance them. 3. Human health. Ecology has implications for human health as well. By studying ecological patterns and processes, we can better comprehend the spread of diseases, the impact of pollution on ecosystems, and the relationship between human activities and environmental changes. This understanding allows us to develop strategies for disease prevention, promote healthier environments, and mitigate the negative effects of pollution on human well-being. 4. Climate change. Ecology plays a critical role in addressing the challenges of climate change. Ecological research helps us understand the impacts of climate change on ecosystems, species distribution, and the functioning of natural systems. It also provides insights into the mitigation of climate change through ecosystem-based approaches such as reforestation, carbon sequestration, and sustainable land management. 5. Sustainable resource management. Ecology provides the foundation for sustainable resource management practices. By studying population dynamics, nutrient cycling, and energy flow in ecosystems, we can make informed decisions about the sustainable use of resources such as fisheries, forests, and water. This knowledge helps prevent overexploitation, promote sustainable harvesting practices, and protect natural resources for future generations. In summary, ecology is highly relevant to humanity as it helps us understand and address environmental challenges, promotes sustainable practices, protects biodiversity, safeguards ecosystem services, and contributes to human health and well-being. By recognizing the intricate interconnections between organisms and their environment, we can strive for a harmonious coexistence with nature and ensure a sustainable future for ourselves and the planet. Natural resources. Natural resources are materials or substances that occur naturally in the environment and are utilized by humans for various purposes. These resources can be categorized into renewable and non-renewable resources. 1. Renewable resources. Renewable resources are replenished naturally and can be sustained over time. Examples include solar energy, wind power, biomass, water, and forests. These resources have the potential to be used indefinitely if managed properly and can provide a continuous supply of energy, food, and materials. 2. Non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are finite in quantity and cannot be replenished within a human lifespan. Examples include fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, minerals, iron, copper, gold, and precious stones. Once these resources are extracted and consumed, they cannot be replaced. Non-renewable resources are limited and will eventually be depleted if extraction rates exceed natural replenishment processes. The relevance of natural resources to humanity is immense. 1. Energy production. Natural resources serve as the primary source of energy for human activities. Fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, have been traditionally used for electricity generation, heating, transportation, and industrial processes. Renewable resources, such as solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal energy, are gaining importance as sustainable alternatives to reduce dependence on non-renewable resources and mitigate environmental impacts. 2. Economic development. Natural resources play a crucial role in economic growth and development. Many industries, such as mining, agriculture, forestry, and fishing, rely heavily on natural resources for raw materials and production processes. The extraction, processing, and trade of natural resources contribute to national economies, job creation, and export revenues. 3. Infrastructure and construction. Natural resources are essential for building infrastructure and constructing buildings, roads, bridges, and other physical structures. Materials like timber, stone, sand, and metals are derived from natural resources and are used extensively in the construction industry. 4. Food production and agriculture. Natural resources, particularly fertile soil and water, are fundamental for agriculture and food production. They provide the necessary conditions for cultivating crops, raising livestock, and sustaining fisheries. Soil fertility and water availability directly impact agricultural productivity and food security. 5. Manufacturing and industry. Many industrial processes rely on natural resources as raw materials or inputs. For example, minerals and metals are essential for manufacturing machinery, electronics, vehicles, and consumer goods. Chemicals derived from natural resources are used in various industries, including pharmaceuticals, textiles, plastics, and cosmetics. 6. Environmental protection. Natural resources are intricately linked to the health and well-being of ecosystems and biodiversity. Conserving and sustainably managing natural resources are critical for maintaining ecosystem services, preserving habitats, and protecting endangered species. Environmental stewardship and responsible resource management are essential to prevent overexploitation and ensure the long-term sustainability of ecosystems. It is important to manage natural resources wisely, considering their finite nature and the potential environmental impacts associated with their extraction and use. Sustainable practices, resource conservation, and the development of renewable alternatives are key strategies for ensuring the availability and longevity of natural resources for current and future generations. Sustainable management and conservation of natural resources and ecology. The sustainable management and conservation of natural resources are closely linked to the field of ecology. Ecology provides the scientific foundation and understanding necessary for making informed decisions and implementing strategies to protect and preserve natural resources. Here is how ecology contributes to sustainable management and conservation. 1. Understanding ecosystems. Ecology studies the relationships and interactions between organisms and their environment, including the physical and biological components of ecosystems. This knowledge helps us understand the functioning and dynamics of ecosystems, the services they provide, and the potential impacts of human activities on these systems. By understanding the complexities of ecosystems, we can develop effective strategies for their sustainable management and conservation. 2. Biodiversity conservation. Ecology emphasizes the importance of biodiversity, the variety of life on Earth, and its role in ecosystem stability and resilience. Conservation efforts are guided by ecological research that assesses species populations, habitats, and ecological processes. By studying species distributions, population dynamics, and ecological interactions, ecologists help identify key areas for conservation, establish protected areas, and implement measures to preserve biodiversity. 3. Ecosystem services assessment. Ecology contributes to understanding the value of ecosystem services, the benefits that ecosystems provide to humans. It helps quantify and assess the contributions of natural resources and ecosystems to human well-being, such as clean air and water, pollination, climate regulation, and soil fertility. This knowledge is essential for making informed decisions about resource management and ensuring the sustainable use of ecosystem services. 4. Sustainable resource use. Ecology provides insights into sustainable practices for resource management. By studying population dynamics, nutrient cycling, and energy flow in ecosystems, ecologists can determine sustainable harvesting levels and strategies. This knowledge helps prevent overexploitation of resources, promote sustainable fishing, forestry, and agriculture practices, and establish quotas or regulations to maintain resource abundance and productivity. 5. Conservation planning. Ecology plays a vital role in conservation planning and prioritization. Ecological research helps identify critical habitats, migration routes, and areas of high biodiversity value. This information is used to develop conservation strategies, such as establishing protected areas, implementing habitat restoration projects, and creating corridors to connect fragmented ecosystems. Ecology also contributes to the assessment of potential impacts on ecosystems, guiding environmental impact assessments and the development of mitigation measures. 6. Climate change adaptation. Ecology contributes to understanding the impacts of climate change on ecosystems and species. It helps identify vulnerable ecosystems and species, assesses their adaptive capacity, and guides the development of strategies for climate change adaptation. Ecology-based approaches such as ecosystem restoration, reforestation, and sustainable land management can also contribute to climate change mitigation efforts. Overall, ecology provides the scientific understanding and knowledge necessary for the sustainable management and conservation of natural resources. By studying ecological processes, understanding biodiversity, and assessing ecosystem services, we can develop strategies to protect and preserve our natural resources, ensuring their availability for future generations while maintaining the health and functioning of ecosystems. Physical and social environment as factors of crop distribution and production. The physical and social environment significantly influence crop distribution and production. Here is an overview of how these factors impact agriculture. Physical environment. 1. Climate. Climate is a crucial factor determining the types of crops that can be grown in a particular region. Different crops have specific temperature, precipitation, and sunlight requirements. For example, tropical regions are suitable for growing crops like bananas and rice, while temperate regions are more suitable for wheat and corn. The length of the growing season and the occurrence of frost also affect crop choices. 2. Soil characteristics, such as fertility, texture, pH level, and drainage, play a vital role in crop production. Different crops have specific soil requirements for optimal growth. Some crops thrive in well-drained sandy soils, while others require fertile loamy or clay soils. Soil composition affects nutrient availability, water holding capacity, and root development, all of which influence crop distribution and productivity. 3. Topography. The physical features of the land, such as slope, altitude, and aspect, influence crop distribution. Steep slopes may limit mechanized farming and require terracing, affecting the choice of crops. Altitude affects temperature and can restrict the cultivation of certain crops. For example, high-altitude regions are suitable for growing crops like coffee and potatoes. 4. Water availability. The availability of water resources, either through rainfall or irrigation, is a critical factor in crop distribution. Crops that require ample water, such as rice or sugarcane, are commonly grown in areas with high rainfall or access to irrigation systems. In contrast, drought-resistant crops like millets and sorghum are suitable for regions with limited water availability. Social environment. 1. Cultural practices. Sociocultural factors influence crop preferences and agricultural practices. Local customs, traditions, and dietary habits shape the demand for specific crops. Cultural preferences and knowledge passed down through generations influence the choice of crops and farming techniques, preserving traditional farming systems. 2. Economic factors. Economic conditions and market demand impact crop distribution and production. Farmers consider profitability and market prices when deciding which crops to cultivate. Availability of infrastructure for transportation and market access also influence crop choices. 3. Technological advances. Technological advancements in agriculture, such as improved crop varieties, mechanization, irrigation systems, and pest management techniques, can influence crop distribution. Adoption of new technologies and farming practices can enhance productivity and enable the cultivation of crops in previously unsuitable areas. 4. Government policies. Government policies, including subsidies, tariffs, land tenure systems, and agricultural regulations, shape crop production and distribution. Agricultural policies can influence the choice of crops through incentives or market interventions. For example, subsidies for specific crops may encourage farmers to grow them, leading to their increased distribution. 5. Infrastructure and access to resources. Availability of infrastructure, such as roads, storage facilities, and marketplaces, impacts crop distribution and market accessibility. Access to resources like credit, inputs, seeds, fertilizers, and agricultural extension services also affect crop production. It's important to note that the physical and social environment factors interact and influence each other. Successful crop distribution and production require an understanding of these factors and their interplay to make informed decisions about suitable crops, farming techniques, and resource management practices. Agroecology. Agroecology is a holistic approach to agriculture that integrates ecological principles and practices into farming systems. It aims to create sustainable and resilient agricultural systems that are environmentally sound, socially just, and economically viable. Agroecology recognizes the interdependencies between plants, animals, humans, and their environment, emphasizing the importance of ecological processes and biodiversity in agriculture. Here are some key aspects of agroecology. 1. Biodiversity. Agroecology promotes biodiversity conservation and recognizes the role of diverse ecosystems in supporting agricultural productivity. It focuses on maintaining and enhancing on-farm biodiversity through practices such as crop rotation, intercropping, agroforestry, and the preservation of natural habitats. Biodiversity promotes natural pest control, nutrient cycling, and soil health, reducing the reliance on synthetic inputs. 2. Soil health and fertility. Agroecology emphasizes the importance of building and maintaining healthy soils. Practices such as composting, cover cropping, mulching, and crop diversification are employed to improve soil fertility, structure, and nutrient cycling. Healthy soils support plant growth, retain water, and contribute to carbon sequestration, enhancing overall farm resilience. 3. Ecological pest management. Agroecology promotes natural pest management strategies, reducing the dependence on chemical pesticides. It encourages the use of biological control agents, crop diversification, habitat management for beneficial insects, and cultural practices that disrupt pest life cycles. By fostering balanced ecosystems, agroecology minimizes pest outbreaks and enhances long-term pest control. 4. Water management. Agroecology emphasizes efficient water management and conservation practices. Techniques like rainwater harvesting, contour plowing, drip irrigation, and water recycling reduce water consumption and improve water use efficiency. By managing water resources sustainably, agroecology helps address water scarcity issues and minimizes environmental impacts. 5. Agrobiodiversity and local knowledge. Agroecology values and integrates local knowledge systems and traditional farming practices. It recognizes the importance of traditional crop varieties, local seeds, and indigenous farming practices that have adapted to specific agroecological conditions over generations. These practices preserve agrobiodiversity and enhance resilience in the face of environmental challenges. 6. Social and economic equity. Agroecology promotes social justice and equitable access to resources and benefits in agricultural systems. It supports small-scale farmers, encourages participatory approaches, and empowers local communities in decision-making processes. Agroecology aims to create sustainable livelihoods and strengthen local food systems, reducing dependence on external inputs and markets. 7. Resilience and adaptation. Agroecology aims to build resilient agricultural systems that can adapt to changing environmental conditions and disturbances. By enhancing biodiversity, promoting soil health, and integrating ecological principles, agroecology improves the capacity of farming systems to withstand climate variability, pest outbreaks, and other challenges. Agroecology offers a holistic and sustainable approach to agriculture, addressing environmental, social, and economic dimensions. It promotes ecological resilience, biodiversity conservation, and the well-being of farmers and rural communities. By integrating ecological principles and local knowledge, agroecology contributes to the long-term sustainability and resilience of agricultural systems. Cropping pattern as indicators of environments. Cropping patterns can serve as indicators of environmental conditions and provide insights into the suitability of specific environments for agricultural production. Here are some ways in which cropping patterns can be indicative of environmental factors. 1. Climate. Different crops have specific climate requirements. The choice of crops in a particular region can indicate the prevailing climate conditions. For example, regions with cool climates and shorter growing seasons may have a predominance of crops like barley, oats, or potatoes. In contrast, tropical regions with abundant rainfall may have a higher prevalence of crops like rice, sugarcane, or tropical fruits. 2. Water availability. Crop selection can indicate the availability of water resources in a given area. Crops requiring ample water, such as paddy, rice or sugarcane, are more likely to be cultivated in areas with high rainfall or access to irrigation systems. Drought-tolerant crops like millets or cacti are typically grown in arid or water-stressed regions. 3. Soil fertility and composition. Different crops have specific soil requirements for optimal growth. Crop selection can provide insights into soil fertility and composition. For instance, crops like corn or soybeans thrive in well-drained loamy or sandy soils with moderate fertility. Conversely, crops like bananas or citrus fruits prefer fertile, well-drained soils with higher organic matter content. 4. Topography and slope. Crop choices can be influenced by the topography and slope of the land. Steep slopes may limit the cultivation of certain crops due to erosion risks and difficulties in mechanized farming. In such areas, crops like tea, coffee, or fruit orchards are commonly grown. Flat or gently sloping areas are more suitable for crops that require machinery for cultivation, such as large-scale grain crops. 5. Market and economic factors. Crop selection can also be influenced by market demand and economic factors. Farmers often consider profitability and market prices when deciding which crops to grow. The availability of infrastructure for transportation, storage facilities, and market access can impact crop choices as well. 6. Historical and cultural factors. Historical agricultural practices, traditions, and cultural preferences can shape cropping patterns. Crops that have been traditionally grown in an area due to cultural significance or historical suitability may continue to dominate the agricultural landscape. 7. Government policies and support. Crop choices can be influenced by government policies, subsidies, and support programs. Incentives provided for specific crops, such as price support or input subsidies, can influence farmers' decisions on what to cultivate. It's important to note that cropping patterns can be dynamic and subject to change due to various factors, including technological advancements, market fluctuations, and shifts in environmental conditions. By analyzing cropping patterns, researchers, policymakers, and agronomists can gain valuable insights into the environmental conditions and constraints that affect agricultural production in a given region. Environmental pollution and associated hazards to crops, animals, and humans. Environmental pollution can have significant hazards and adverse effects on crops, animals, and humans. Here are some of the key impacts of pollution on these entities. 1. Crop damage and yield reduction. Pollution, particularly air pollution, can directly affect crops by depositing harmful substances on plant surfaces or through the uptake of pollutants from contaminated soil or water. Air pollutants such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, ozone, and particulate matter can damage plant tissues, impair photosynthesis, reduce crop yields, and alter crop quality. Soil and water pollution can lead to nutrient imbalances, heavy metal contamination, and pesticide residues, negatively impacting crop growth and productivity. 2. Contamination of food and water. Environmental pollution can contaminate food crops, leading to potential risks for human health. Pesticide residues, heavy metals, and other pollutants can accumulate in crops, making them unsafe for consumption. Similarly, polluted water sources used for irrigation or drinking can introduce harmful substances into the food chain, affecting both humans and animals. 3. Health effects on animals. Pollution can harm animals through direct exposure or the ingestion of contaminated food and water. Air pollution, including gases and particulate matter, can cause respiratory problems, reduced lung function, and increased susceptibility to infections in animals. Water pollution, such as chemical pollutants or toxins from industrial discharges, can contaminate aquatic ecosystems and affect fish and other aquatic organisms. Contaminated feed can lead to toxic effects on livestock, compromising their health, growth, and productivity. 4. Human health risks. Environmental pollution poses significant risks to human health. Air pollution can lead to respiratory issues, cardiovascular problems, and an increased risk of lung diseases. Exposure to chemical pollutants, such as heavy metals, pesticides, and industrial contaminants, can have adverse effects on various body systems, including the nervous, endocrine, and immune systems. Contaminated food and water can introduce harmful substances into the human body, leading to acute or chronic health conditions, including cancers, neurological disorders, and developmental abnormalities. 5. Ecological imbalances. Pollution can disrupt ecosystems and lead to imbalances in ecological processes. Contamination of water bodies can harm aquatic organisms, disrupt food chains, and impact biodiversity. The loss of beneficial insects and pollinators due to pesticide use can disrupt pollination services, affecting crop yields and natural ecosystems. Pollution can also contribute to the degradation of habitats, loss of biodiversity, and ecological disturbances, ultimately impacting the overall health and functioning of ecosystems. Mitigating these hazards requires collective efforts to reduce pollution and adopt sustainable practices. This includes implementing pollution control measures, promoting cleaner technologies, reducing the use of toxic substances, improving waste management systems, and supporting policies that prioritize environmental protection and human health. Climate change. International conventions and global initiatives. Climate change is a pressing global issue that requires international cooperation and concerted efforts to address its causes and impacts. Several international conventions and global initiatives have been established to tackle climate change. Here are some of the key ones. 1. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFC. The UNFC, established in 1992, is a global environmental treaty with the objective of stabilizing greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. It serves as the foundation for international cooperation on climate change. The convention sets out the principles and guidelines for addressing climate change and provides a framework for negotiations and action among its member countries. 2. Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol is an international treaty adopted under the Upsc in 1997. It sets binding emission reduction targets for developed countries, known as Annex I parties, for the period 2008 to 2012. The protocol established mechanisms for countries to achieve their targets, including emissions trading, Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, and joint implementation, G. Although the Kyoto Protocol's initial commitment period has ended, it laid the groundwork for subsequent global climate agreements. 3. Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, adopted in 2015 and under the auspices of the UNFC, aims to strengthen the global response to climate change. It sets the goal of limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, pursuing efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The agreement includes provisions for countries to submit nationally determined contributions, NDCs, outlining their emission reduction targets and strategies. It also establishes a transparency framework, mechanisms for climate finance, technology transfer, and capacity building support. 4. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. The IPCC is a scientific body established by the United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization, WMO. It provides policymakers with comprehensive scientific assessments on climate change, its impacts, and potential mitigation and adaptation options. The IPCC's reports and findings inform international climate negotiations and policy decisions. 5. United Nations Climate Action Summit. The UN Climate Action Summit is a global platform that brings together world leaders, governments, businesses, and civil society to accelerate climate action. The summit aims to showcase and scale up climate solutions and commitments, fostering collaboration and partnerships across sectors. It serves as a forum for announcing new initiatives and strengthening existing efforts to address climate change. 6. Global Climate Funds. Various global funds have been established to mobilize financial resources for climate change mitigation and adaptation projects in developing countries. Examples include the Green Climate Fund, GCF, the Adaptation Fund, and the Global Environment Facility, GEF. These funds support climate-related projects, facilitate technology transfer, and assist vulnerable countries in building resilience to climate change. These international conventions and initiatives are critical in promoting global cooperation, fostering dialogue, and catalyzing action to combat climate change. They provide a framework for countries to work together, share best practices, and mobilize resources to address the challenges posed by climate change and transition to a more sustainable and resilient future. Greenhouse effect and global warming. The greenhouse effect and global warming are closely interconnected concepts related to the Earth's climate system. Here is an overview of each. 1. Greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is a natural process that regulates the Earth's temperature and makes it habitable for life. Certain gases in the atmosphere, known as greenhouse gases, GHGs, trap and re-emit infrared radiation, thereby warming the planet. The primary greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, nitrous oxide, N2O, and fluorinated gases. These gases allow sunlight to penetrate the Earth's atmosphere, but they trap some of the outgoing heat, preventing it from escaping into space. 2. Global warming. Global warming refers to the long-term increase in Earth's average surface temperature. It is primarily driven by the enhanced greenhouse effect resulting from human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, and deforestation. These activities release substantial amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, significantly increasing its concentration. The increased concentrations of greenhouse gases trap more heat, leading to a rise in global temperatures. The relationship between the greenhouse effect and global warming can be summarized as follows. The greenhouse effect is a natural phenomenon that maintains the Earth's temperature at a habitable level. However, human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels and the release of greenhouse gases, have intensified the greenhouse effect. This enhanced greenhouse effect leads to global warming, causing an increase in average global temperatures and associated climate changes. The consequences of global warming include times rising temperatures. Global warming leads to increased average temperatures, which affect weather patterns, ecosystems, and human health. Times melting ice and rising sea levels. Warmer temperatures cause the melting of glaciers, ice caps, and polar ice, contributing to sea level rise. This threatens coastal communities and low-lying areas. Times extreme weather events. Global warming intensifies heat waves, droughts, storms, and heavy rainfall events, increasing the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Times shifts in ecosystems. Changes in temperature and precipitation patterns can disrupt ecosystems, affecting species distribution, migration patterns, and ecological relationships. Times ocean acidification. Increased carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is absorbed by the oceans, leading to ocean acidification. This harms marine life, particularly organisms with calcium carbonate shells or skeletons. Times impacts on human health. Global warming affects human health through heat-related illnesses, increased prevalence of vector-borne diseases, reduced air and water quality, and food security challenges. Mitigating global warming requires efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transition to clean and renewable energy sources, enhance energy efficiency, protect forests, and promote sustainable land use practices. International agreements like the Paris Agreement aim to limit global warming to manageable levels and promote collective action to address climate change. Advanced tools for ecosystem analysis, remote sensing, RUPEs, and geographic information systems, GIS. Remote sensing, RUPEs, and geographic information systems, GIS, are advanced tools widely used for ecosystem analysis. Let's explore how each of these technologies contributes to understanding and managing ecosystems. 1. Remote sensing. RUPEs. Remote sensing involves capturing and interpreting information about the Earth's surface and atmosphere from a distance, typically using sensors on satellites, aircraft, or drones. It provides valuable data on various aspects of ecosystems, including vegetation cover, land use and land cover changes, ecosystem health, and environmental parameters. Some key applications of RUPEs in ecosystem analysis include Times vegetation monitoring. RUPEs allows the assessment of vegetation dynamics, including vegetation density, species composition, and health. It helps monitor changes in vegetation cover, track deforestation, detect invasive species, and evaluate the impact of land management practices. Times ecosystem mapping. RUPEs enables the mapping and classification of land cover types, such as forests, wetlands, agricultural fields, and urban areas. It provides spatial data on the distribution and extent of different ecosystems, supporting habitat mapping and conservation planning. Times fire and disturbance monitoring. RUPEs can detect and monitor forest fires, as well as other disturbances like deforestation, land degradation, and natural disasters. It aids in the assessment of fire severity, post-fire recovery, and the impacts of disturbances on ecosystem health. Times climate and environmental monitoring. RUPEs contributes to monitoring environmental parameters, such as temperature, precipitation, soil moisture, and water quality. It provides data for climate modeling, drought assessment, flood monitoring, and the study of climate change impacts on ecosystems. 2. Geographic information systems. GIS. GIS is a technology that integrates spatial data, such as maps, satellite imagery, and geospatial datasets, with non-spatial data to analyze and visualize information about the Earth's surface. GIS enables the manipulation, analysis, and modeling of spatial data, providing insights into ecosystem patterns, processes, and interactions. Some key applications of GIS in ecosystem analysis include Times spatial analysis. GIS allows the overlaying and analysis of various spatial datasets to identify patterns, relationships, and trends within ecosystems. It supports the assessment of landscape connectivity, species habitat suitability, and ecological corridors. Times ecosystem modeling. GIS enables the development and simulation of ecosystem models to understand ecosystem dynamics, predict changes, and evaluate management scenarios. It aids in assessing the impacts of land use changes, climate change, and other factors on ecosystems. Times conservation planning. GIS facilitates the identification of priority areas for conservation based on ecological criteria, such as species richness, biodiversity hotspots, and ecosystem services. It helps in designing protected areas, wildlife corridors, and land use plans that balance conservation and human activities. Times environmental impact assessment. GIS supports the evaluation of environmental impacts of development projects. It allows the integration of various data layers to assess potential effects on ecosystems, such as habitat fragmentation, water pollution, or land degradation. Times decision support systems. GIS serves as a decision support tool for ecosystem management. It helps stakeholders, policymakers, and land managers visualize and analyze complex spatial data to make informed decisions about land use, resource allocation, and conservation strategies. By combining remote sensing and GIS technologies, researchers and practitioners can gain a comprehensive understanding of ecosystems, monitor changes over time, and develop effective strategies for ecosystem conservation and sustainable management. These tools enable the integration of spatial and non-spatial data, facilitating informed decision-making and promoting evidence-based approaches to ecosystem analysis and planning. Cropping patterns in different agroclimatic zones of the country. Cropping patterns in different agroclimatic zones vary based on the specific climatic conditions, soil types, and suitability for different crops. While it is not possible to cover the entire country comprehensively, I can provide you with a general overview of cropping patterns in different agroclimatic zones found in many countries. Here are some examples. 1. Tropical zone. In tropical regions, characterized by high temperatures and abundant rainfall, common crops include rice, maize, sugarcane, bananas, tropical fruits, such as mangoes and pineapples, and various vegetables. These areas often have multiple cropping seasons due to the favorable climate. 2. Subtropical zone. Subtropical regions have moderately warm temperatures and distinct seasons. Common crops in this zone include wheat, barley, maize, citrus fruits, grapes, olives, cotton, and vegetables like tomatoes and peppers. Some regions in the subtropics also have irrigation systems to support crop production during dry periods. 3. Mediterranean zone. The Mediterranean climate is characterized by mild, wet winters and hot, dry summers. Crops commonly grown in this zone include wheat, barley, olives, grapes for wine production, citrus fruits, figs, and various vegetables like tomatoes, cucumbers, and eggplants. Tree crops such as almonds and pistachios are also well suited to this climate. 4. Temperate zone. The temperate climate has distinct seasons, including cold winters and warm summers. Common crops in this zone include wheat, barley, oats, maize, potatoes, apples, pears, berries, and cool season vegetables like broccoli, lettuce, and carrots. Dairy farming and livestock rearing are also prominent in some temperate regions. 5. Arid and semi-arid zone. Arid and semi-arid regions experience limited rainfall and high temperatures. Crops grown in these zones are adapted to arid conditions and include drought-tolerant crops such as millets, sorghum, chickpeas, lentils, and desert-adapted vegetables. Livestock rearing, particularly of camels, goats, and sheep, is common in these areas. 6. Mountainous zone. Mountainous regions have varying climates depending on altitude. High altitude areas are often characterized by cooler temperatures, while lower slopes may have more moderate climates. Crops grown in mountainous zones include wheat, barley, potatoes, maize, beans, peas, and various fruits adapted to colder temperatures such as apples and cherries. It's important to note that these cropping patterns are general examples and can vary within specific countries and regions due to factors like local practices, market demands, and technological advancements. Additionally, agricultural practices are influenced not only by climate but also by socio-economic factors, cultural practices, and available infrastructure. Impact of high-yielding and short-duration varieties on shifts in cropping patterns. The introduction of high-yielding and short-duration varieties of crops has had a significant impact on shifts in cropping patterns worldwide. Here are some key effects. 1. Increased crop productivity. High-yielding varieties, HYVs, are developed through selective breeding or genetic modification to have improved traits such as higher yields, disease resistance, and tolerance to environmental stresses. When farmers adopt these varieties, it often leads to increased crop productivity. The higher yields achieved with HYVs enable farmers to produce more food on the same amount of land, contributing to food security and reducing pressure to convert natural ecosystems into agricultural land. 2. Crop diversification. The availability of high-yielding and short-duration varieties has allowed farmers to diversify their cropping patterns. Traditional crop varieties may have limitations in terms of yield potential, susceptibility to pests and diseases, or adaptability to specific climates. HYVs offer farmers alternative options, allowing them to choose crops that are more profitable, better suited to their local conditions, or in demand in the market. This diversification of crops can reduce risks associated with monocropping, enhance resilience to climate variability, and contribute to sustainable agricultural systems. 3. Shifts in crop choices. The adoption of high-yielding and short-duration varieties can lead to shifts in the choice of crops grown in a region. Farmers may switch from traditional crop varieties to those that offer higher yields and better economic returns. For example, in some areas, farmers have transitioned from traditional varieties of cereals to hybrid or genetically modified varieties that offer improved yields. This shift in cropping patterns may result in changes in land use, as well as alterations in the ecological and socio-economic dynamics of the region. 4. Impact on traditional crops. The introduction of HYVs can have unintended consequences for traditional or local crop varieties. As farmers adopt high-yielding varieties, they may reduce or abandon the cultivation of traditional varieties, leading to a loss of genetic diversity and potential threats to food security. Preserving traditional crop varieties is important for maintaining agrobiodiversity, preserving cultural heritage, and ensuring genetic resources for future crop improvement. 5. Technological dependence. The adoption of high-yielding and short-duration varieties often goes hand in hand with the use of modern agricultural inputs such as chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and irrigation. This can create a dependency on external inputs and technologies, which may have environmental and socio-economic implications. Sustainable farming practices, such as agroecological approaches, can help mitigate potential negative impacts and promote more resilient and resource-efficient farming systems. It is essential to consider the broader implications and sustainability aspects of shifts in cropping patterns driven by high-yielding and short-duration varieties. Balancing the benefits of increased productivity with environmental conservation, genetic diversity preservation, and socio-economic considerations is crucial for long-term food security and sustainable agriculture. Concepts of various cropping and farming systems. There are several cropping and farming systems practiced worldwide, each with its own set of principles and practices. Here are some key concepts and examples of different cropping and farming systems. 1. Monoculture. Monoculture refers to the practice of cultivating a single crop over a large area. It involves the repeated planting of the same crop in a field without crop rotation. Monoculture systems are commonly used for crops like wheat, rice, corn, and soybeans. While monoculture can optimize production and management for specific crops, it can also lead to increased vulnerability to pests, diseases, and soil degradation. 2. Polyculture. Polyculture involves growing multiple crops simultaneously in the same field. It promotes biodiversity, reduces pest and disease pressures, and enhances nutrient cycling. Examples of polyculture systems include intercropping, where 2 or more crops are grown together, and mixed cropping, where different crops are sown in the same field but not necessarily in defined patterns. 3. Crop rotation. Crop rotation is the practice of growing different crops sequentially on the same piece of land. It helps break pest and disease cycles, improves soil fertility, and reduces weed pressure. Common crop rotation systems include alternating grain crops with legumes, such as rotating corn with soybeans or wheat with alfalfa. 4. Agroforestry. Agroforestry integrates the cultivation of trees or shrubs with agricultural crops or livestock. It combines the benefits of agriculture and forestry, such as soil conservation, enhanced biodiversity, and improved microclimate. Agroforestry systems include alley cropping, planting crops between rows of trees, silvopasture, combining trees, forage, and livestock, and windbreaks, Planting trees to protect fields from wind erosion. 5. Organic farming. Organic farming emphasizes the use of natural processes and avoids the use of synthetic chemicals, genetically modified organisms, and irradiation. It focuses on building soil fertility, maintaining ecological balance, and promoting biodiversity. Organic farming systems prioritize practices such as crop rotations, organic fertilizers, biological pest control, and the avoidance of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. 6. Hydroponics. Hydroponics is a soilless farming technique that involves growing plants in a nutrient-rich water solution. It enables precise control of nutrients, water, and environmental conditions, allowing for year-round cultivation in controlled environments. Hydroponics systems can be used to grow a wide range of crops, including leafy greens, herbs, and tomatoes. 7. Permaculture. Permaculture is a design system that integrates ecological principles and aims to create sustainable and self-sufficient agricultural systems. It emphasizes the use of natural processes, biodiversity, and regenerative practices. Permaculture designs often incorporate diverse food crops, trees, and animals, along with elements such as water catchment, composting, and energy efficiency. 8. Precision agriculture. Precision agriculture utilizes technology, such as GPS, remote sensing, and data analytics, to optimize inputs and management practices at a site-specific level. It enables farmers to make data-driven decisions, improve resource efficiency, and minimize environmental impacts. Precision agriculture involves practices like variable rate seeding, fertilization, and pesticide application. These are just a few examples of the many cropping and farming systems that exist. Farmers and agricultural practitioners often adapt and combine these systems based on local conditions, resources, and objectives. The choice of a specific system depends on factors such as climate, soil fertility, market demands, available technologies, and sustainability goals. Organic and precision farming. Organic farming. Organic farming is an agricultural approach that emphasizes the use of natural processes and materials while avoiding synthetic chemicals, genetically modified organisms, GMOs, and irradiation. The primary goal of organic farming is to create sustainable and environmentally friendly agricultural systems. Here are some key features and practices associated with organic farming. 1. Soil health. Organic farming focuses on building and maintaining healthy soils through practices such as composting, crop rotation, cover cropping, and the use of organic fertilizers. The emphasis is on enhancing soil structure, fertility, and microbial activity, which supports plant growth and resilience. 2. Biological pest control. Organic farmers rely on natural methods for pest and disease control, such as beneficial insects, crop rotation, habitat diversification, and the use of resistant crop varieties. The aim is to minimize the use of synthetic pesticides and promote natural pest management processes. 3. Avoidance of synthetic inputs. Organic farming prohibits the use of synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and genetically modified organisms. Instead, organic farmers use organic approved inputs, including natural fertilizers, biopesticides, and cultural practices to manage pests, diseases, and weeds. 4. Biodiversity conservation. Organic farming encourages the preservation of on-farm biodiversity. Farmers strive to create habitat diversity, conserve natural areas, and protect pollinators and beneficial organisms. This approach supports ecological balance, enhances ecosystem services, and helps reduce reliance on external inputs. 5. Animal welfare. Organic farming includes specific standards for livestock production, focusing on providing animals with natural living conditions, access to the outdoors, and organic feed. Animal welfare considerations are an integral part of organic farming systems. Precision farming. Precision agriculture. Precision farming, also known as precision agriculture, uses technology and data-driven approaches to optimize agricultural practices at a site-specific level. The goal of precision farming is to improve resource efficiency, reduce environmental impact, and optimize crop yields. Here are some key features and practices associated with precision farming. 1. Site-specific management. Precision farming utilizes technologies like global positioning systems, GPS, remote sensing, and geographic information systems, GIS, to gather data on soil properties, crop growth, and environmental conditions. This information is used to make precise and targeted decisions for inputs and management practices. 2. Variable rate technology. VRT enables farmers to apply inputs, such as seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides, at different rates based on the specific needs of different areas within a field. By customizing inputs based on variations in soil fertility, moisture levels, and crop health, farmers can optimize resource use and reduce wastage. 3. Data analytics and decision support systems. Precision farming involves the collection, analysis, and interpretation of large amounts of data to support decision-making. Data on soil characteristics, crop growth, weather conditions, and historical yield information are used to make informed decisions about planting, fertilization, irrigation, and pest management. 4. Remote sensing and imaging. Remote sensing technologies, including aerial imagery, satellite imagery, and drones, provide valuable information on crop health, stress detection, and variability within fields. These data sources help farmers identify crop issues, monitor growth, and make targeted interventions. 5. Real-time monitoring. Precision farming often incorporates real-time monitoring systems to track environmental conditions, soil moisture levels, and plant health. Sensor networks and automated data collection systems provide up-to-date information, allowing farmers to take immediate actions and respond to changing conditions. Both organic farming and precision farming offer unique approaches to agricultural production. Organic farming prioritizes natural processes, biodiversity, and soil health, while precision farming utilizes technology and data to optimize inputs and management practices. The choice between these approaches depends on factors such as farmer goals, available resources, market demands, and environmental considerations. Some farmers may even combine elements of both approaches to achieve their objectives in a sustainable and efficient manner. Package of practices for production of important cereals. Here are some general package of practices for the production of important cereals. 1. Rice. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and leveling to achieve a well-prepared seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Choose high-quality seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with fungicides or bioagents to protect against seed-borne diseases. Times planting. Transplant rice seedlings in puddled fields or sow direct-seeded varieties at the recommended spacing and depth. Times water management. Maintain proper water levels in the field, with periodic flooding during the vegetative stage and controlled irrigation during the reproductive stage. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and inorganic fertilizers based on soil testing to provide balanced nutrition to the crop. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely and proper land preparation, manual weeding, or herbicide application. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and control pests like stem borers, leaf folders, and diseases like blast and sheath blight through integrated pest management practices and use of resistant varieties. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the grains are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop and dry it in the sun before storage. 2. Wheat. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Select certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with fungicides or insecticides to prevent seed-borne diseases and pests. Times sowing. Plant wheat seeds at the appropriate time, depth, and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and manage pests like aphids, armyworms, and diseases like rust and powdery mildew through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the grains are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop to separate grains from the straw before storage. 3. Match. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to obtain a good seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Use certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with fungicides or insecticides to protect against seed-borne diseases and pests. Times planting. Sow match seeds at the appropriate time, depth, and spacing based on the variety and prevailing climatic conditions. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil testing to meet the crop's nutrient requirements. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and manage pests like stem borers, armyworms, and diseases like madge rust and leaf blight through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the grains are fully mature and dry. Remove the cobs from the plants and dry them further before storage. These practices provide a general overview of the package of practices for cereals. However, it's important to note that specific recommendations may vary depending on the local agroclimatic conditions, specific variety being cultivated, and the farmer's resources and preferences. Local agricultural extension services and experts can provide more detailed and location-specific guidelines for cereal crop production. Package of practices for production of important pulses. Here are some general package of practices for the production of important pulses. 1. Chickpea, gram. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Choose certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing. Plant chickpea seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to chickpea. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and manage pests like pod borers, pod flies, and diseases like wilt and blight through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the pods are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop and dry the seeds before storage. 2. Pigeon pea, tour. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Use certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing. plant pigeon pea seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to pigeon pea. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like pod borers, pod flies, and diseases like wilt and sterility mosaic virus through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest the crop when the pods are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop and dry the seeds before storage. 3. Red lentil, masoor. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, choose certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, plant red lentil seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to lentils. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like aphids, pod borers, and diseases like wilt and blight through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest the crop when the pods are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop and remove the seeds before storage. These practices provide a general overview of the package of practices for important pulses. However, it's important to note that specific recommendations may vary depending on the local agroclimatic conditions, specific variety being cultivated, and the farmer's resources and preferences. Local agricultural extension services and experts can provide more detailed and location-specific guidelines for pulse crop production. Package of practices for production of important oilseeds. Here are some general package of practices for the production of oilseeds. 1. Soybean. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, choose certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, plant soybean seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with a particular emphasis on nitrogen and phosphorus. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to soybean. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like soybean pod borer, soybean aphid, and diseases like soybean rust through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest the crop when the soybean plants have reached physiological maturity and the pods have turned brown. Thresh the harvested crop and dry the seeds before storage. 2. Groundnut. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a well-prepared seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, use certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, plant groundnut seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, paying attention to phosphorus and potassium. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to groundnut. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like groundnut aphids, termites, and diseases like leaf spot and aflatoxin contamination through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest the crop when the groundnut pods have fully matured, typically indicated by drying and yellowing of the leaves. Uproot the plants, shake off the soil, and dry the harvested crop before storage. 3. Mustard. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, choose certified seeds of recommended varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, plant mustard seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with a particular focus on nitrogen and sulfur. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to mustard. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like aphids, flea beetles, and diseases like white rust and powdery mildew through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest the crop when the mustard plants have fully matured, indicated by the yellowing and drying of the lower leaves. Cut the plants near the ground and dry them before threshing the pods and storing the seeds. These practices provide a general overview of the package of practices for important oilseeds. However, it's important to note that specific recommendations may vary depending on the local agroclimatic conditions, specific variety being cultivated, and the farmer's resources and preferences. Local agricultural extension services and experts can provide more detailed and location-specific guidelines for oilseed crop production. Package of practices for production of important fibers. Here are some general package of practices for the production of important fiber crops. 1. Cotton. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, choose certified seeds of recommended cotton varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, plant cotton seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with a particular emphasis on nitrogen and potassium. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to cotton. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like bollworms, aphids, and diseases like cotton leaf curl virus and wilt through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest cotton when the balls have fully matured and burst open, revealing fluffy white cotton fibers. Mechanically pick the cotton from the plants and remove impurities before processing the fibers. 2. Jute. Times land preparation, prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a well-prepared seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment, use certified seeds of recommended jute varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or bioagents to prevent seed-borne diseases. Times sowing, sow jute seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management, apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with a particular focus on potassium and phosphorus. Times irrigation, provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and fiber development. Times weed management, control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to jute. Times pest and disease control, monitor and manage pests like stem weevils, white flies, and diseases like stem rot and leaf spot through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting, harvest jute when the plants are fully matured but still green. Cut the plants close to the ground, bundle them, and steep them in water to facilitate fiber extraction. After a few days, strip the fiber from the jute stems and dry them before further processing. These practices provide a general overview of the package of practices for important fiber crops. However, it's important to note that specific recommendations may vary depending on the local agroclimatic conditions, specific variety being cultivated, and the farmer's resources and preferences. Local agricultural extension services and experts can provide more detailed and location-specific guidelines for fiber crop production. Package of practices for production of sugarcane. Here are some general package of practices for the production of sugarcane. 1. Land preparation. Times clear the field of weeds, debris, and any previous crop residues. Times plow and harrow the land to create a fine and level seedbed. Times incorporate organic matter, such as compost or well-rotted manure, to improve soil fertility and structure. 2. Variety selection. Times choose high-yielding and disease-resistant sugarcane varieties suitable for your region. Times consider factors such as climate, soil type, and intended use, sugar production or forage. 3. Planting. Times obtain healthy and disease-free sugarcane sets, stem cuttings. Times cut the sets into sections with at least 2 to 3 buds each. Times plant the sets in furrows or trenches at the recommended spacing, usually around 1.5 to 2 feet apart. Times ensure proper depth and orientation of the sets, with the buds facing upwards. 4. Nutrient management. Times conduct a soil test to determine the nutrient status and requirements. Times apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil test recommendations. Times commonly used fertilizers for sugarcane include nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Times split the fertilizer application, with the majority applied at planting and subsequent doses during the crop's growth stages. 5. Irrigation. Times provide sufficient water to maintain optimal soil moisture throughout the growing season. Times sugarcane requires regular and adequate irrigation, especially during dry periods. Times monitor soil moisture levels and adjust irrigation practices accordingly. 6. Weed management. Times control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides. Times weed management is critical, as weeds can compete with sugarcane for nutrients, water, and sunlight. 7. Pest and disease control. Times monitor and manage pests like shoot borers, termites, and diseases like red rot, smut, and leaf scald. Times follow integrated pest management, IPM, practices, including cultural controls, biological controls, and judicious use of pesticides. 8. Crop protection. Times take measures to protect the crop from adverse weather conditions such as frost, hailstorms, and excessive rainfall. Times erect windbreaks or plant shelter belts to mitigate the effects of strong winds. 9. Harvesting. Times harvest sugarcane when it reaches maturity, typically indicated by changes in color and texture of the internodes. Times cut the canes close to the ground using a sharp machete or mechanical harvesters. Times handle harvested sugarcane carefully to minimize damage. 10. Post-harvest. Times transport the harvested sugarcane to the processing plant as quickly as possible to maintain its quality and sugar content. Times process the sugarcane into sugar or other derived products, following the specific procedures employed by the sugar mill. It's important to note that specific recommendations and practices may vary based on the agroclimatic conditions, local practices, and cultivar characteristics. Consulting local sugarcane experts, agricultural extension services, or sugar industry representatives will provide more specific and regionally relevant guidelines for sugarcane production. Package of practices for production of important commercial and fodder crops. Here are some general package of practices for the production of important commercial and fodder crops. Commercial crops. 1. Match. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a well-prepared seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Choose certified seeds of recommended match varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or insecticides to prevent seed-borne diseases and pests. Times sowing. Plant match seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with an emphasis on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to match. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and manage pests like stem borers, armyworms, and diseases like match rust and leaf blight through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the grains are fully mature and dry. Remove the cobs from the plants and dry them further before storage. 2. Wheat. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Use certified seeds of recommended wheat varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or insecticides to prevent seed-borne diseases and pests. Times sowing. Plant wheat seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with an emphasis on nitrogen and phosphorus. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to wheat. Times pest and disease control. Monitor and manage pests like aphids, armyworms, and diseases like rust and powdery mildew through proper crop monitoring and use of appropriate insecticides or fungicides. Times harvesting. Harvest the crop when the grains are fully mature and dry. Thresh the harvested crop to separate grains from the straw before storage. Fodder crops. 1. Napier grass. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine seedbed. Times planting. Plant napier grass cuttings or rhizome sections at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with an emphasis on nitrogen and potassium. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to napier grass. Times harvesting. Harvest napier grass when it reaches a height of about 2 meters. Cut the grass at the appropriate height to promote regrowth and maintain fodder quality. 2. Lucerne, alfalfa. Times land preparation. Prepare the field by plowing and harrowing to create a fine and weed-free seedbed. Times seed selection and treatment. Use certified seeds of recommended lucerne varieties and treat them with appropriate fungicides or insecticides to prevent seed-borne diseases and pests. Times sowing. Plant lucerne seeds at the appropriate time and spacing, considering the prevailing climatic conditions and variety requirements. Times nutrient management. Apply organic manure and balanced fertilizers based on soil analysis to meet the crop's nutrient requirements, with an emphasis on phosphorus and potassium. Times irrigation. Provide sufficient water during critical growth stages, ensuring adequate soil moisture for optimum plant growth and yield. Times weed management. Control weeds through timely land preparation, manual weeding, or the use of pre-emergence and post-emergence herbicides specific to lucerne. Times harvesting. Harvest lucerne when it reaches the flowering stage. Cut the plants 5 to 10 cm above the ground to encourage regrowth for subsequent harvests. These practices provide a general overview of the package of practices for important commercial and fodder crops. However, it's important to note that specific recommendations may vary depending on the local agroclimatic conditions, specific variety being cultivated, and the farmer's resources and preferences. Local agricultural extension services and experts can provide more detailed and location-specific guidelines for these crop productions. Important features and scope of various types of forestry plantations such as social forestry. Forestry plantations are cultivated forests that are established for various purposes, including timber production, ecological restoration, biodiversity conservation, and socio-economic development. Here are the important features and scope of various types of forestry plantations, including social forestry. 1. Social forestry. Times features. Social forestry focuses on involving local communities in forest management and providing them with benefits. It aims to address social, economic, and environmental challenges by integrating trees and forests into rural livelihoods. Times scope. Social forestry promotes community participation in tree planting, forest protection, and sustainable utilization of forest resources. It aims to enhance local livelihoods, provide fuel wood, fodder, and other forest products, and contribute to environmental conservation. Social forestry programs often include agroforestry, community woodlots, village woodlands, and participatory forest management. 2. Commercial forestry. Times features. Commercial forestry is oriented towards timber production and generates economic value from forest resources. It involves the cultivation of fast-growing tree species for industrial purposes, such as timber, pulp, and paper production. Times scope. Commercial forestry focuses on establishing large-scale tree plantations with high-value timber species. It involves the management of the plantation, including planting, thinning, and harvesting of trees. Commercial forestry plantations contribute to the local economy, job creation, and the supply of raw materials to industries. 3. Industrial plantations. Times features. Industrial plantations are large-scale, intensively managed forests primarily established for industrial purposes. They often consist of single-species monocultures, such as eucalyptus or acacia, chosen for their rapid growth and commercial value. Times scope. Industrial plantations are typically established to meet the demand for specific products, such as pulp and paper, bioenergy, or fiber. They are managed intensively using modern forestry techniques, including genetic improvement, fertilization, and mechanized harvesting. Industrial plantations play a significant role in meeting the global demand for wood-based products. 4. Ecological restoration plantations. Times features. Ecological restoration plantations focus on rehabilitating degraded landscapes and ecosystems. They aim to restore biodiversity, improve ecosystem services, and enhance environmental resilience. Times scope. Ecological restoration plantations involve planting a mix of native tree species to restore habitat connectivity, improve soil health, and mitigate erosion. They are often established in areas that have experienced deforestation, mining, or other forms of land degradation. Restoration plantations contribute to conserving biodiversity, protecting water resources, and enhancing ecological resilience. 5. Agroforestry systems. Times features. Agroforestry combines the cultivation of trees with agricultural crops or livestock. It integrates the ecological benefits of trees with agricultural production, providing multiple products and services. Times scope. Agroforestry systems can be diverse and include practices such as alley cropping, silvopasture, and home gardens. They provide benefits such as improved soil fertility, microclimate regulation, diversification of income sources, and increased biodiversity. Agroforestry contributes to sustainable land use, climate change adaptation, and improved livelihoods. The scope and objectives of different forestry plantations may vary based on local ecological, social, and economic conditions. Sustainable management practices, stakeholder engagement, and long-term planning are crucial for ensuring the success and multiple benefits of forestry plantations. Important features and scope of various types of forestry plantations such as agroforestry and natural forests. Certainly. Here are the important features and scope of agroforestry and natural forests. Agroforestry. Times features. Agroforestry is a land use system that integrates the cultivation of trees with agricultural crops or livestock on the same piece of land. It involves the deliberate and managed combination of trees with crops or livestock to maximize ecological and economic benefits. Times scope. Agroforestry systems have a wide range of applications and can be adapted to different agroclimatic conditions. They provide multiple benefits, including improved soil fertility, increased crop yields, enhanced biodiversity, carbon sequestration, water regulation, and diversified income sources for farmers. Agroforestry systems can include alley cropping, silvopasture, windbreaks, and home gardens, among others. Natural forests. Times features. Natural forests, also known as native or primary forests, are ecosystems dominated by naturally occurring tree species, with minimal human intervention or management. They are complex and diverse ecological systems that provide numerous ecosystem services. Times scope. Natural forests have significant ecological, social, and economic importance. They support high levels of biodiversity, protect watersheds, regulate climate, provide habitat for wildlife, and offer opportunities for recreation and cultural activities. They are also sources of timber, non-timber forest products, and medicinal plants. The scope of natural forests lies in their conservation, sustainable management, and restoration to maintain their ecological integrity and the services they provide. Both agroforestry and natural forests play vital roles in sustainable land use and natural resource management. Agroforestry offers opportunities for integrated and sustainable agricultural production, while natural forests are critical for biodiversity conservation, climate regulation, and maintaining the overall health of ecosystems. Combining the benefits of both systems can contribute to achieving ecological sustainability, enhancing food security, and supporting livelihoods. It's important to implement appropriate management practices, promote conservation efforts, and ensure the long-term viability of both agroforestry and natural forest systems.